Hello, it's time again for the program from the National Assembly, specifically the House of Representatives. Welcome and thanks for joining us. I am Itaire Ikben. The House is on recess for the Salah holidays and will reconvene on the 2nd of July 2024. Between now and then, members of the House will be interfacing with their constituents at the level of the federal constituencies to perhaps feel their pulses on issues that will form part of motions and bills that will eventually come up on the floor of the House. They will also, of course, be holding consultations on existing bills before Parliament, as well as other crucial national issues, not forgetting, of course, the minimum wage propositions expected to come as an executive bill to Parliament upon resumption of plenary. Meanwhile, on the program today, we have put together highlights of the House plenary of 5th of June 2024, which featured issues of security and the minimum wage debate.
This section is hereby called to order. Honorable Sada Soli.
Requesting the House to suspend its relevant rules in order to take this matter of urgent public importance. Need to review security approach to address banditry attacks in Sokoto, Zamfara, Katsina, Kaduna, and Kebbi states in northwest Nigeria. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Idris Wasim.
Mr. Speaker, I want to second the motion, but I don't know where we are placing the earlier resolution of the House of last week that we set a date to discuss security matter, as canvassed by my brother, Honorable Chinda, which both and proceedings were adopted today.
Was a resolution reached on that? Was it an amendment to?
No, there was a resolution like that, sir. That was
Okay, hit me with the resolution that referred to that. If not, so we include it in today's amendment.
Thank you.
So are you seconding that?
I'm seconding, and if possible, if we can continue with the motion, if today is a set date, we can continue, sir.
Those in support that the motion is urgent, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. That aye was with so much force, so much energy. There's a second leg of that motion that is urgent enough to be heard today. Any seconder to that?
I second the second leg of the motion. I so second.
Urgent enough to be heard now. Those in support of this motion say aye. Motion have been moved and have been seconded. Those in support of this motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Honorable Sada.
This motion is being sponsored by about 25 members of this House across the country. The House notes that Zamfara, Sokoto, Kebbi, Kaduna, and Katsina states have been plagued by escalating banditry attacks resulting in the loss of lives, kidnapping for ransom, displacement of communities, and disruption of socio-economic activities. Further note that a number of state governments across the country have allocated significant funds to augment the operations of the security agencies in combating kidnapping, attacks by unknown gunmen, banditry, and restoring peace in their respective states. It records that collaboration and coordination among our state governments, security agencies, and relevant stakeholders to develop holistic and sustainable solutions to the challenges posed by bandits and other security challenges in Northwest and Nigeria in general. Cognizance that the governors of our state in Northwest affirm their commitment to supporting an acceptable and workable initiatives that promote peace, security, and development in the region, and pledge to work towards fostering a safe and secure environment for all our people. concerned that incessant banditry attacks on communities in Northwest and other parts of the country would significantly impact food production and agricultural activities, jeopardizing food security and livelihoods of the people in affected states of the region in the coming rainy season. Worried that concerns have been raised regarding the effectiveness and long-term implications of negotiating with bandits, including potential legitimization of criminal activities and the incentivizing further attacks of terrorism. Resolved to urge Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, to direct for a thorough review and evaluation of the strategies employed by security agencies through effective collaboration with the state governments in Nigeria and other parts of the country. Also urge both federal and Northwest governments to reconsider their approach to negotiation with criminals and explore alternative strategies to address the root causes of insecurity, such as improving law enforcement, enhancing community policing, and promoting socio-economic development in the affected states. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
I rise, Mr. Speaker, to second this wonderful motion just ably moved by my honorable friend and colleague, Sada Soli. I so second, Mr. Speaker.
I listened to his motion, and my amendment goes like this. If you look at it, Mr. Speaker, the whole of northern state is faced with insecurity. As I rightly said that I'm from Niger State, you know, anybody that is in Nigeria is aware that Niger State have suffered a lot of setback as a result of this insecurity. In the light of this and over this others, therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to amend that the entire northern Nigeria is faced with this menace. And again, so the prayer should read that the whole of the northern Nigeria, not other states. Benue is affected, Plateau is affected, Niger, in the entire North Central is affected. So no state should be left out in the northern Nigeria. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Northern Nigeria again on insecurity, because we are adopting the strategy you are proposing here.
Honorable colleague, let us maintain decorum, please. Honorable colleague, Honorable Nasarawa from Kano, please get seated. Thank you.
So I need somebody to second that motion for amendment before we, if he has a seconder, we can now go ahead. If not, so any seconder to that motion that this particular motion of Honorable Sada Soli covers the entire northern Nigeria.
Amendment.
Any seconder?
Before seconding the motion, let me just make a little amendment.
No.
Out to.
You are Deputy Chairman, Rules and Business. You know it's outside our rules to do that. Okay. You stood up to second, and then if we are debating the amendment, you can bring up your suggestion. We are going to debate this amendment.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, this issue really has affected the entire northern part.
Are you seconding?
I'm seconding it.
All right. There's a motion that is on the floor that will move for an amendment. I want to hear what you have to say about this, especially those from the north. Let me hear you, Honorable Gadi Yusuf.
Mr. Speaker, Right Honorable Idris was earlier called our attention to the resolution of this House that there was a position to discuss insecurity. It doesn't stop us from taking specific motions that members feel to bring. Well, the day that insecurity matters should be discussed, members should have prior notice, because each state have its own peculiarity of security situation. So in coming up with a position at the end
Let me clear you. From the Secretariat, that resolution was not in our vote and proceeding.
Okay.
So they are just
In view of that, Mr. Speaker.
But we can bring it in those conversations.
In view of that, Mr. Speaker, merging the entire states, I think is not appropriate. Because the insecurity in Niger, Benue Plateau, Kogi, Maiduguri, Zamfara have its own peculiarities. The prayers may differ from one state to another. So I suggest, in my own opinions, that matters of urgent public importance regarding to insecurity should be taken based on peculiarity of those regions or those situations. But to harmonize them all, for instance, in Plateau, we have our own peculiarity that may differ from that one in Zamfara. So I suggest, Mr. Speaker, that they should come based on individual position.
Thank you.
Unless if we are taking a day to discuss security matters.
They are unique. They are not the same. What is happening in this state may not be the same thing happening in the other states. So applying similar strategy across board may not give the expected impact. That is your point. Any other person debating against this particular proposition that all the northern areas be included?
Mr. Speaker, mine is an amendment on the prayer.
No, not yet. We are debating that amendment. We'll come back to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
I want to call the attention of the last person on the floor on the fact that talking about this.
Are you for or against?
I am against.
You are against?
I am against because if we say insecurity and the difference in peculiarity is not a issue that will be resolved because of the peculiarities can be solved differently. When the 19 state governors of the North and the stakeholders come together and discuss, they will discuss the peculiarities and the solutions. You can remember, Honorable Speaker.
So you're actually supporting the amendment?
Yes, to bring all the northern states together to sit down and discuss the insecurity is better, because before it was in the northeast, it's now migrated to northwest, north central, and that it will continue going like that. If we go state by state, it will not work. But if we come together, sit down, discuss, strategize the workabilities, and discuss the peculiarities, we can be able to put a strategy that will work for the entire northern state.
Security integration strategy.
Yes.
Regional security integration strategy. That's what they are advocating, and that is against what Gadi provided, and that is in support of what the proposal of the amendment provided. I just want to, is there anybody that is against that amendment? That's what I want to hear. You're not from the north. I want to hear from those from the north first. Yes, Honorable Shetima.
With the issue of security, but Mr. Speaker, taking the issue of security, aligning it to only the northern state, 19 northern states, for us to decide or find a strategy or collaborate, whatever name you can hold. We are talking of insecurity of the entire nation. There's no place where you can now say there's no insecurity in Nigeria. We have to face the reality. So if we are going to talk of insecurity, let's have time to the House as a whole for us to discuss the issue of insecurity for the entire nation.
Please kindly approach the chair.
Northern states are doing their very best. So go to the southwest, go to north central. I was even wondering when my deputy leader was saying Kogi has been the most peaceful state in the nation. When about 4 weeks ago we are hearing about kidnapping of students. That they released, but they have been kidnapped. So But the issue of insecurity cut across the entire nation. So, Mr. Speaker, to me, if we are talking of security, let's have time, enough time. Even if it will take us the whole day to discuss the issue of insecurity and later come up with a strategic position of the House and take it up with the executive, I think it's better than to now sideline any of the states in the nation to say this part of the country need to sit down and collaborate and whatever. So to me, let's take security seriously as a whole, even if it takes us the whole day for us to discuss and come up with a solution, please. That's my position, sir.
That demands enough time for us to deliberate on it, on the issue of security. So we'll just scratch the surface today, but we are going to get one full day to discuss security. I think Clerk and Rules and Business look at Tuesday or Wednesday of next week and advise the chair one of the days that we can handle that. If it's not suitable, advise us on a day that is most suitable to take on security issues. All right? Yeah, just work internally and advise us on how to go about it. I think I want us to put a vote to that amendment so that we'll end this discussion. Because a lot of people want to comment on it. But before I do that, I want to hear from other people from other parts of the country. You know, I've been saying North should speak, but it's one Nigeria. I want to hear from you. Point of
order, Mr. Speaker. Had been affected by the insecurity are out of the country. They are going for Hajj. So I think, please, we can be able to get a date.
Okay, the chairman, Rules and Business, and the clerk will work out a good day, all right? I mean a full day for security. It doesn't mean that we're not going to discuss security today at all. Let's hear from you, Mozodinobi.
Nigeria is cured. Where are they now pushing the other one? Is it not southeast, southwest, south-south? From the contribution so far, I feel that we had to, like you said, look at security holistically. We are parliamentarians, we represent 360 federal constituency, and there is no state that don't have insecurity in this country. Our brothers, sisters, mothers are not going to farm, and this is farming season, and the whole insecurity will snowball into. Therefore, I will urge the mover of this motion to see if he can step it down. Then we look at a day. I saw more.
Presentation was for them to expand the horizon of the motion to include the entire country, not just northern Nigeria.
I emphasized on it. I'm saying that since we are looking forward to discuss insecurity generally in the near future.
So we should include other parts of the country.
Yes, completely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the mover of the amendment, he's proposing that we expand it a little bit so that it will now include the whole country.
What is happening in terms of insecurity in the north is equally happening in the eastern part of Nigeria. So, in view of that, I am of the opinion that we expand it to cover every part of Nigeria, and as such, Donald resubmit that the insecurity issue should cover the entire nation.
You know, you can't do that.
And again, I step down, that's what you want me to do. I step down the motion so that we can again think of carrying the entire nation as.
Okay, you're stepping down your amendment.
That's what you.
Okay, so you're stepping down your amendment.
Yes, so that it will now cover the entire nation. This one is more superior in terms of argument because the entire country is ravaging.
Okay, motion to include all the northern states of Nigeria.
And then the entire country is more superior.
Motion to include only the northern part of Nigeria is hereby stepped down by the leader of the House.
Yes.
It's another amendment proposed by Osodinobi that your motion should be widened to include all the country. But I think the southern Nigeria should also come with a motion with all the states in the south, if that is what you want, so that way we'll... Well, let's see if there's a seconder to that motion. There's a motion on ground, any seconder, that it should include all nations. People somewhere.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to second this motion to include all of Nigeria and not just the northern part of Nigeria to this motion, that all of Nigeria, we need to discuss the security issue. Mr. Speaker, I stand because I come from Abia State, and last week...
It's all right. You have seconded. Don't debate. Those in support of the motion as amended, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Motion is referred as read. Honorable Yusuf Gadi. Please make it brief.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to rely on Order 8, Rule 5, to move a matter of urgent public importance in respect to isolated criminal killings in Panshin, Kanke, Kanam, and kidnapping activities within the local communities of the federal constituency, and to equally rely on Order 5, Rule 3, by suspending all other relevant rules to enable me move this motion. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
I rise to second the motions of urgent public importance, the post leg from my very good friend and brother, Honorable Yusuf Gadi. I so second, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues.
Say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The second leg of the motion.
I hereby second the second leg of motion, heavily moved by my colleague. I so second. Thank you.
Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Yusuf, make it very brief, straight to the point.
It's an urgent call for swift action in respect to killings, isolated killings, kidnappings, and other criminal activities going on within the four angles of Panshinkanki Kanam Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, the House notes that there are several documented evidence of deliberate threats, kidnapping, and assault targeting members of Panshinkanke Kanam Federal Constituency of Plateau State. The House also notes, Mr. Speaker, that on the 17th February 2024, it was reported and confirmed that the APC Publicity Secretary in Plateau State, in the person of Silvanus Namang, was shot in the headquarters of the Panshinkanke Kanam Federal Constituency at Panshin Local Government of Plateau State, and he died as a result of that particular incident. Again, the House also notes that the lifeless body of one of the former members of the Plateau State House of Assembly in the 8th Plateau State House of Assembly, Honorable Sunday Muchen, whom we have served together with in the Plateau State House of Assembly, was also found in the forest of Bokos, linking to Panshin local government. Further note that the kidnapping of a priest and alleged involvement of the financial secretary of the same church and other members of the church in that act, as well as the abduction of lecturers of Federal College of Education, Panshin, now known as Federal University of Education, in addition to several killings and kidnapping activities in the federal constituency. Concerned that Kanam Forest has now become a safe haven for bandits, Boko Haram, and other criminals as a result of influx from other states that are affected by banditry and other criminal activities. Also concerned that the attack in the forest of Panshin Kanke Kanam, the road that linked the three local government of the constituency, and other kidnapping activities of local farmers have been going on unabated. Worried that members of these communities are highly vulnerable to inadequacy of police personnel, civil defense, and other security personnel to police such areas. Disturbed that reports of diverse acts of violence have been made with such frequency that a failure to address this problem portends great danger to the people that I represent, that is the people of Panshinkanke Kanam Federal Constituency. Resolve, sir. 1. Observe a minute silence to honor the soul of the APC Organizing Publicity Secretary, Honorable Silvanus Norman, the former member of the Plateau State House of Assembly that was equally killed, Honorable Sonde Muchen, and the departed, and all the departed, and extend heartfelt condolences to the families of the deceased. Urge the Chief of Defense Staff to establish and increase military bases in Kanam, specifically to be located in Garga axis, which link the forest, and Gumgat, the area that connect the local government to Tafa Balewa Bauchi, a local government in Bauchi State. 3. Call on the Inspector General of Police and the Commandant General of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense to deploy additional personnel to the affected areas in Gumgadi, Garga area, Panshing Road, and Kanke to avoid attacks by armed robbers and killing of local farmers. 4. Urge the Director of Department of State Service to conduct a discreet security operation in the area with the aim of flushing out bandits and other criminal elements that have found those areas as their safe haven. 5. I call on the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development and the Director General of National Emergency Agency to provide relief materials to victims that have been attacked in the three local governments. 6. Mandate the Committee on Police Affairs, National Security and Intelligence and Army to ensure compliance of these prayers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to move this motion.
Second to this motion. Maki.
Mr. Speaker, I rise this afternoon to second the motion heavily moved by my honorable colleagues, Yusuf Adamu Gaddi. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleagues.
Those in support of this motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. If you may recall, the first motion that involved the killing of somebody in South Africa requested for 1 minute silence. And again, this also requested for 1 minute silence. May we rise for 1 minute silence. But the souls of the departed rest in perfect peace. This motion is referred to Committee on Police, House Committee on National Security and Intelligence, House Committee on Army, and House Committee on Legislative Compliance. Honorable Maki, please move your motion, but straight to the point.
A recent brutal attack on military personnel at a checkpoint at Obikabia Junction in Abia State, where 5 soldiers were horrorously murdered by suspected gunmen. Also sudden that the perspective of the act destroyed and burned down the military vehicles at the checkpoint, while some soldiers narrowly escaped with gunshot injuries. Aware that these military personnel were on a peace mission in their service to their fatherland and ensuring the security of lives and property in that area. Disturbed, this form of attack and killing of military personnel by gunmen in the southeast and other parts of Nigeria has a potential of depending the morale of our armed forces, endangering the lives and property of Nigerians and affecting the war of insurgents, which has no far recorded and success. Worry that it could also lead to retaliation attack by the military and cause huge collateral damage on the people. Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleagues, resolved, urge the House to observe a 1-minute silence for the soul of the 5 military personnel killed in the horror incident. Mandate the security agencies to conduct a thorough and wholesome investigation into the circumstances that led to this gruesome and disproportionate murder while executing the threat in the application of military force on civilians. Mandate the House Committee on Defense to interface with the armed forces of Nigeria to ensure compliance and report to the House within 4 weeks. I so move, Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleagues. Thank you.
And I rise to second the motion ably moved by Honorable Maki Yaliman. I so second.
Like the motion says, it demoralizes these security men who sacrifice all to stand for us. Before I put the question, Honorable Jimmy, you are raising your hand.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Again, it's a very, very, very sad day. A couple of months ago, our armed forces, our most prized assets, who sacrificed day and night to keep Nigeria one, to keep Nigeria safe, are randomly killed by non-state actors. Mr. Speaker, it is indeed extremely sad. These killings are very provocative to the armed forces. But however, I must commend your swift intervention. Information reaching us was that you visited the locus in quo in Abia State, your states, and you commiserated with the families of the slain. You also helped raise money to help douse the tension, which is extremely high. This non-kinetic approach of yours is very commendable. Mr. President has also intervened. He promised to ensure that the perpetrators of these heinous crimes are brought to book. However, these sporadic killings have become a daily occurrence, and same must stop.
Mr. Speaker, my respected colleagues, this is a very, very important and delicate motion, moved my friend and brother, Honorable Makialema, and jointly supported by the Chairman's Committee on Defense and that of Navy. It is true that the nation is facing a serious security challenges, most especially in a situation whereby our security agencies, the police, army, Nigerian Civil Defense Corps, are easy targets. They are killed and maimed at the caprice of the criminals. I support wholeheartedly the motion, the prayers and recommendation therein, and I hope the House, and by extension the National Assembly, including Mr. President himself, to take decisive actions as moved in the prayer and by the mover of the motion. Mr. Speaker, I will equally thank you for finding time to visit the families of the deceased, to commiserate with them on behalf of the National Assembly and by extension the House of Reps. We commend you and we urge you to keep it up, and urge all million Nigerians to also contribute to the welfare of the deceased family. Government cannot single-handedly be taking care of all the responsibilities of the deceased. The 1 million Nigerians, everybody can come up and contribute so that the security and welfare of our security men and women, they can be proud of what the entire nation is doing to them, not only the members of the National Assembly or the executive arm of government. where business community, and other prominent personalities in this nation. So, Mr. Speaker, I am solidly behind this motion, and I urge the House to adopt all the recommendations therein. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to add my voice. Thank you, sir.
And Nigerians are responding so mightily. Like you rightly pointed out, we can't leave the government to do all the work alone. Those widows, the orphans, the children, the fatherless in the barracks, they need our care. And we started a fund called the Peace Fund for victims of insecurity. It's going to go around the country, and Nigerians have been donating to that fund. We'll form a committee by the end of next week. Around the 15th or so, the barracks will be visited again, and some of this fund will be distributed just to, as a non-kinetic means, to let the people know that we care for their welfare and that we are not in support of this slaughtering of those who are protecting us. This motion is a very important one. I'll just go straight to the question. Those in support of this motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. There is 1 minute silence that was prayed in this prayer, and let us rise to observe that. This is for all the security people, officers who have died in the course of their duty while protecting our lives and properties. May the souls of the departed security officers rest in perfect peace. Third to Committee of the House on Defense. Honorable Ali Jesse, this will be the last.
Mr. Speaker, I'm coming under Order 8, Rule 5, to present this motion of urgent need to consider the implementations of minimum wage for Nigerian workers in order to ameliorate the current economic hardship. Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleague, I hereby move.
I stand to second the motion as moved by the minority leader, minority whip, Honorable Ali Issa Jesse. I do second, sir.
Those in support of this motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Please move your motion, Honorable Ali Jesse.
Urgent need to consider the imperativeness of fixing a living wage for Nigerian workers in order to ameliorate the current economic hardship. Mr. Speaker, the House, cognizant to the fact that the global economic outlook as well as recent socio-economic policies of government have resulted in inflation, increase in electricity tariff, currency devaluations, and other diverse economic consequences, especially for Nigerians and Nigerian workers. Equally, cognizant that the government has been locked in negotiation with labor unions toward the upward review of the minimum wage for some time without any agreement, leading to a recent interruption in the negotiations. Commend government for showing absolute commitment by imploring the labor unions to return to negotiation table. Aware that the National Assembly repealed and enacted the National Minimum Wage Act 2019 to fix the minimum wage at 30,000 naira, even when the proposal of the executive then has suggested 27,000 naira at the time being. And also aware that there was 40% wage award by the former president. Also aware that in line with Section 3, subsection 4 of the Act, the extant minimum wage, which commenced on April 18, has expired after the validity of 5 years on the 18th April 2024, thereby calling for a further review of the existing Act. Note that the implications of payment of 35,000 wage award by the federal government to public servants as one of the ways of cushioning the effect of current economic hardship, including the May 1st pronouncement of percentage increase in salaries of civil servants, has for the time being increased the total amount received by civil servants to 77,000 naira monthly. Also note that labor, employment and productivity unions has since demanded for a living wage as against the minimum wage to meet today's economic reality. Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleagues, I want the House to commend labor unions for their commitment toward negotiating a new living wage for Nigerian workers at this very critical period and resolve to call off the strike in the interim. Urge government to redirect the focus of negotiations from fixing a new minimum wage to fixing a realistic living wage for Nigerian workers. Urge government to further consider the downward review of electricity tariff to reduce the sufferings of Nigerians. Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleague, I hereby move these very important and timely motions for the House to consider and look into it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I rise this afternoon, Mr. Speaker, to second this very, very timely and important motion ably moved by the Minority Whip. I so second, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Before I put the question on this motion, I would like to hear from members, because the issue of the national strike that took place is a very important one that we need to address.
Lead debate, huh?
Sorry. You want to say something before that? I thought it's straightforward. Okay, let's hear you. Let's hear you say something.
Mr. Speaker, I remember on Sunday the leadership of the National Assembly met with the Nigerian labor unions, and during the negotiations, the labor unions have also shown commitment in ensuring that this matter is resolved, even though the leadership raises a very important issues to the Nigerian labor union. Particularly, is normal and is also legal for any union to go into strike to show their protest. But in most cases, there are essential services that also need to be given a very serious considerations. Information is available on Monday that there was no work, and yesterday morning, Mr. Speaker, a lot of lives were lost. Hospitals were not working. Electricity has been shut down all over the country, and this is very serious. I appeal to the labor unions and the government to ensure the 1 week provided for these discussions, let it be resolved. And in a situation that we could not achieve anything, then they have to consider special and essential services. Also, Mr. Speaker, I also want to commend the leadership of National Assembly for initiating the negotiations and discussions between the executives and the labor union. I also want the National Assembly to look at the Minimum Wage Act, which was valid for 5 years. Then we need to also look at it. I am also appealing to every Nigerian who is represented by a very respected honorable colleague in this chamber to support these motions and let it get the light of the day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, my highly respected colleague, this is a very important motion. We are being faced as a country with the issue of insecurity, and then the next issue that is bedeviling Nigeria as a country, in my opinion, is that of corruption. We cannot truly fight corruption if we don't pay the Nigerian worker a living wage. And asking for payment of living wage, which we have done variously in this House. If I could recall, about a month ago, the minority leader of the House, with myself and some other members, brought a motion on payment of living wage, not minimum wage. And I believe what we are asking is provided for in our Constitution. Mr. Speaker, I want us to look at Section 16, 2D of Nigerian Constitution. It says that suitable and adequate shelter, suitable and adequate food, reasonable and national minimum living wage shall be provided for the Nigerian worker. So paying a living wage, and I know everybody here understand what living wage means. There is a difference between minimum wage and living wage. What the Nigerian worker deserves is a living wage. And I believe the federal government will see into it and make sure that a Nigerian worker is given a living wage in a situation where he will be free to do his job. And when that person is then caught doing corruption, he can be properly and adequately punished. I therefore urge on all my honorable colleagues to support this motion with the speed of light. I so submit, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, flowing from where Honorable Ali Madaki stopped, I will also want to say that if you read Section 16, which he has espoused properly in conjunction with Section 14, which is one of the most quoted sections of the Constitution in this House, which provides for security of the citizens and their welfare being the primary purpose of government. As usual, again, I will postulate, can we say that as a government, we have succeeded in carrying out that primary purpose of government? Have we provided security for Nigerians? Have we taken care of the welfare of Nigerians? The answer to the two questions is no. We have severally talked about security, including today. In fact, it's as if one Nigerian life today equals to 1 minute silence. Now we're coming to the issue of welfare. And for several years, Nigerian workers have been complaining and crying concerning the issue of salary. Who earns 50,000 in this country and you think that a person can truly depend on a salary? Let's not deceive ourselves. It is not possible. How much is house rent? How much is your transport fare to your office and back home? And so we expect a Nigerian worker to earn as low as that and continue to serve this country. Let us stop playing the ostrich. Let's be realistic. Let's carry out our role to provide for the welfare of the citizens of this country by providing living wage for the Nigerian worker. It's really unfortunate when you hear a government talking about minimum wage and shying away from living wage. This House has resolved in the past that there is urgent need for living wage to be considered for Nigerian workers. However, having said so clearly, I will join the mover of the motion to commend the Nigerian workers for shelving the strike in the interim and allowing an opportunity for discussions and reconciliations of these issues. Although we commend them for doing that, I will also use this opportunity to also say that sometimes when we embark on some of these actions, we should not overstep boundaries. The area of switching off power in the entire country as a way of protest should be condemned. It is not proper. It is not opposite. Who are you protecting? People are in the clinic. Some persons, their lives depended on power at that moment, and you switch off the national grid. That was going too far. whilst you have a good cause, whilst you're on track, you also need to adopt a proper process and procedure in pursuing that cause. So I will urge this House to please, with the speed with which we pass the national anthem, that we should also recall the Minimum Wage Act, reconsider it, and with that same speed, pass that act and ensure that we give the Nigerian worker a living wage in that act. That is the only way we can show solidarity with the Nigerian workers. We have the powers to make laws. Let us make that law. Let us pass it with the speed of light and allow the executive arm to either implement, assent, or refuse to assent. Where the executive arm refuses to assent, I think that will be the first call on this House for us to override Mr. President and ensure that that Minimum Wage Act is passed into law. I will therefore urge us to please support this motion and also add that the Minimum Wage Act should be recalled and reconsidered with the speed of light. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Let me echo some of the words of the minority leader. I think we need to take this one step further. I am in alignment with everything he has submitted. We actually have to criminalize the part where we shut down the national grid. Shutting down the national grid is killing the same people we are protecting. The primary job that we have is to protect lives and property. You cannot go under industrial action and kill people legally, because shutting down the national grid, that was just one too many. I'm sure a lot of people died in the past few days of shutting down the national grid. We have to criminalize that. And secondly, Mr. Speaker, and finally, while we are all here, we support so many good initiatives. I think we need to take this. If an average Nigerian cannot buy a bag of rice in a month, and we're talking about 60,000 naira for minimum wage, I think we need to reconsider that position and actually do something that actually brings dignity to Nigerians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, let me thank the mover of this motion for his patriotism. This motion can only be taken by a pan-Nigerian, and I appreciate him for that. Mr. Speaker, let me also thank the leadership of the National Assembly for their concern that 11-hour meeting with the leadership of Labour. Though it was late, but it's better to be late than never. However, Mr. Speaker, my heart bleeds, rising from the fact that what happened on Monday was quite unfortunate, for the fact that Nigeria were aware that Labour have been raising this issue of national concern, but the government of the day pretended that what happened on Monday, that we are now portioning part of the blame to Labour over the shutting of power. After all, the Labourers can no longer enjoy even the power because it's now meant for the bourgeoisie. It's meant for some person alone in government. Because what are they earning? That they can also enjoy life. So, to me, even the light that was shot, I was in support. The aviation industry that was shot, I was in support. Because that is the situation.
When a man can no longer feed his family, what do you expect from that person?
All right, thank you. Let me guide you. Thank you very much. You see,
I want your protection, please, sir.
Okay, round up, so that I can guide you. You know, the parliament must speak in terms in line with the laws.
Mr. Speaker, again, the inflation, why we consider to increase the minimum wage, I think I also want labor to be sensitive to certain issues in the country. Recall that the last time that the minimum wage...
Okay, round up. We have to give other people opportunity.
Let me land, Mr. Speaker. I need your protection. The inflation rise up to a particular level. So why we want the minimum wage to be increased, we also expect that we should do it in line with the situation in our economy so that we don't overshoot the inflation. And the government should be very fast to resolve this issue, because the 1 week is just tomorrow, so that we don't go into another, we don't postpone the doomsday. Thank you, and God bless all of us.
And that law is known as Nigerian Trade Union Act, Cap T14, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004. This law grants workers the right to strike, but also outlines limitations. Granted, you can strike, but there are limitations. And this you can find in Section 13 of the Trade Union Act T14, Cap T14, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria. This section restricts strikes in essential services deemed vital to public safety and well-being. So when we as Parliament will stay and will say they acted well, even when they acted outside the provisions of our law, I don't think that is where the Parliament will want to align herself. Let me also mention that Section 31, subsection 6 of the Trade Union Act, as amended, prohibits workers and their unions from organizing or participating in strikes if they are engaged in the provision of essential services, which many of you have addressed here. The first schedule to the Trade Dispute Act, as amended, defines essential services broadly, and that includes: 1, public service, includes service in a civil capacity in the armed forces and industries connected with the armed forces. 2, supply of electricity. This is our law: supply of electricity, power, water, or fuel. Trade Dispute Act is very clear with regards to the areas they cannot extend their strike into. Number 3, broadcasting and communication services. You can't wake up and say the radios will not work, television shut down. People cannot know what is happening. It's like anarchy. You can't wake up and say maintenance of ports, harbors, docks, airports, and all that transportation means you are going to strike there. The law also says, number 5, public health services like hospital, sanitation, road cleaning, and fire service. These are essential services that are critical to community well-being, and their disruption is seen as having harmful consequences. So the public interest is more important at all times and should not be interrupted. So this public interest at all times outweighs the right of the workers, because it's not every member of the public that is a public servant. So this is what we must debate. We should look into that when we are, debating this kind of issue, so that we don't go and tell Nigerians that the law says this, but that these people acted well, even though they acted outside the law. Let us hear from here.
Honorable members that have spoken on this issue as well. Few things that we need to address on this issue has to do with our position as an organ of government. We all agreed that Nigerian Labour Congress, they have the right to present their view and their expectation from the executive. But at the same time, just like the issue of switching off the national grid has been totally condemned, I want to, at this point, reflect on a few things that we need to understand as an organ of government while we are contributing, on this matter. The fact that the minimum wage...
Make it brief so that others can contribute.
Yes, minimum wage seems to be very low. It's understandable. But we cannot plan completely for the executive as the people who have control. They have the idea of the amounts they need to spend annually in the budget. As a business leader, we shouldn't use the floor here to look at it as if whatever amount that we need to say it should be adopted or whatever Labour is agitating for. With the issue of pretense, we shouldn't be using inflammatory statements that the executive is pretending as if they were not seeing what the Labour Congress were talking about. I think that is completely shouldn't be discussed at this point in time, with an organ.
All right, thank you.
Like us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, this motion is a very important motion and very timely. Mine is just to draw the attention of this House that as an institution that is saddled with the responsibility of promulgating laws for the good governance of this country, we should equally play a mediatory role whenever there is dispute between employer and employee. I want to draw our attention to the fact that while we are discussing this very sensitive issue, we should be mindful of the fact that we equally have our limitations. You can neither discuss for or against when negotiations are taking place. Ours as leaders is to advise government to kindly, on behalf of all Nigerians, to do the needful and do it timely. And at the same time, draw the attention of the trade unions that while they are conducting their legitimate functions of negotiating with government on behalf of workers, they should be mindful of the fact that they should be guided by the laws of the land. Where some of them try to cross the boundaries, the laws of the land should call them to order. We have a nation, we have an economy, and it is the responsibility of all of us to always be mindful that you can be in government, you can be a civil servant or a public servant only when the land, when the government and the country exist. So mine is very simple. One, to urge government and labor union to kindly go back to the drawing board and do the right thing within the ambit of the law. Even the war going on in Gaza must end on a round table. All issues globally are sorted out on a table. But while you are going to embark on a strike, let us please, on behalf of Nigerians who are not civil servants, because where your right ends, somebody's right begins.
Thank you.
It is on this note. I guess I'm protected.
You are protected. No observation in sitting. You come by way of point of order and refer us to that order. But you are protected. Go ahead.
So,
but round up.
I align myself with the fact that we should, as a parliament, hasten in revisiting the issue of the minimum wage, the law guiding minimum wage, and the Trade Union Act, so that we put things in their proper perspective. Going forward, we should avoid areas that people should be crossing their boundaries while doing.
Mr. Speaker, this issue is quite timely, and I must commend the mover of this motion. It is a topical issue that is burning in the country and needs to be discussed. First and foremost, I would like to state that you cannot end hardship with more hardship. What the actions of the labor unions has created untold hardships to the Nigerian masses for whom they are fighting a cause to elevate their living standards. There are so many deaths over the last 24 hours due to the lack of power, so many losses in business. A lot has happened. And like the Right Honorable Deputy Speaker stated, there are laws that guide strike actions, and there are areas that cannot be touched during strike actions. And one of such is power, the media houses, among many others. This action is quite inhuman, considering the untold hardship this has caused. However, to the crux of the matter, I believe that the Nigerian worker is in a dire state. I believe that there is need for a better living condition for the Nigerian worker. In a country where the minimum wage is 30,000 and the bag of rice is about 70,000 naira, my dear colleagues, this is in no way justifiable. We cannot keep our heads high and look at this happening. We have an urgent need to intervene as the people's voice to make sure that the executive does the right thing. The living conditions of the Nigerian worker are in a very poor state. Light is expensive, fuel is expensive. People barely eat. People barely eat. Transportation has become something else. Certain workers cannot even, their salary cannot even afford transportation for a week to come to their places of work because where they live is far from their offices. So there's an urgent need, like the motion states, for us to do something as a parliament, to call on the executive to please look at it and look at it with positive light. And I hope this motion passes in this House with the speed of light. Thank you very much. I so submit.
Mr. Speaker, there are so many contributions on this issue, but the major thing is, the issue is not whether government want to pay or not, but how much are they paying? How much are they paying? I don't know whether we can propose that government should pay about 250,000 as a minimum wage. So the issue is not on, and I blame the leadership too, even in government, but what the leadership and the government did was behaving like somebody who was staying in somebody's house. And you are going to expire on the 31st of every the previous year. Then on the 30th, you now run to your landlord to say, I beg you, I beg you. That's exactly what people did. Because Labour gave enough time for them to stop so that this issue can be trashed. But the leadership and even government were dilly-dallying until they pronounced strike. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, this administration stands on 3 tripods. 1, they promised consumer credit. That has been done. If the consumer credit scheme comes into effect, it will ameliorate the efforts of workers. It will mean that workers can be able to purchase goods and services on a mortgage type arrangement. That bill has been signed into law. Its implementation is coming on stream very soon. The law was passed with the speed of light. Second of all, the student loan bill has come into effect. It is also to ameliorate the stress on workers and on students. The third one, which the government knows that it has to do, is the living wage that we are debating about. With or without pressure from the labor union, the government of the day already knows that Nigerians must earn a living wage. However, what I frown against is the shutting down of essential services as espoused by all the members that have spoken. This has consequences under the Criminal Justice Act. The government has been benevolent in not evoking those consequences. I agree, sir, that arriving at a minimum wage must also take cognizance of the organized private sector. If today we agree that the minimum wage is 70,000 naira per month, 13% of the beneficiaries will be civil servants, both in states and in the federal sector. How are we sure that the organized private sector, who constitutes over 80% of Nigeria's workforce, can afford it? So it is not as easy as sitting down and signing a bill. We need to do proper research. We need to involve the organized private sector. The organized private sector have a lot of SMEs. SMEs are the catalyst for economic growth. So it is not just pressurizing the government to pay 100,000, 500,000. It may be detrimental to the interests of Nigerians in the future. I personally, I always like to propose that minimum wage issue should not be an exclusive list issue. It should be a concurrent list. Some states can even pay higher than the minimum wage. As we speak today, I hear Edo State pays over 70,000 for his workforce. Lagos pays over 75,000 to his workforce. Some states cannot even afford to pay that. Why legislate a standard amount for each state? It may be detrimental to our affairs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for yielding the floor to me.
That gentleman has been raising his hand. Let's hear you.
Mr. Speaker, I've listened to the contributions, so far, and I have reservations. I think if we continue like this 1 week will expire and we will not settle these problems. We'll be talking about advice to labor. We are not talking about the solutions, to this problem. And from somebody from a labor background, I think we're not getting the point. See, even if we're in the side of law to say labor should not have conducted themselves, in this form, the labor man will tell you that if he's the one guiding or operating the national grid and he has not eaten, he has problems at home, you will not force him to sit down there and continue to work under essential, situations. So I want us to balance the ideas in both forms. My advice under this circumstance is that government should define their figure of minimum living wage to the Nigerian worker. They must define it. It's not just throwing 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, or 60,000. Whatever government is going to say on the figure, they should tell us how they arrived at that figure. Secondly, is that each time
Are you aware that there's a negotiation going on within these 5 years?
That is even the area I want to go to.
And are you also aware that we cannot stay here and speak for them on their behalf when they are not here?
That's why I'm saying solution.
So the solution is that there is a mechanism in place by the current government to engage with labor in the next 5 days.
Okay.
And that mechanism has been activated. all we are lending is our voice on how both parties, executive should listen to them, and then also should operate within the confines of the law that we have made. That is all our contribution should revolve around. And we have deliberated on this so much. So round up, I have one more.
Yes, just one last point. That's one last point. So I have the requisite knowledge for negotiation. You see, each time you go to...
How do you know?
Yes, I know, because they are impatient.
How do you know? That is casting aspersion on those who are there.
That is the truth. That
the leadership of the House and the leadership of the Senate were involved. Are you saying they don't know what is going on?
Speaker, we have very experienced labor leaders in this House. We also
don't have to be a labor leader to involve in the negotiation.
It will help you. It will help you to understand, to negotiate with labor. It is not just a mere social engagement. These labor officers are experts to represent their people. So you must also have government people who know the nitty-gritty on negotiations to be able to get to a common point. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I want to thank the mover of this motion and the minority leaders who have spoken to align myself with their positions, because if I don't speak on this topical issue, I'll be failing my constituents and the platform that brought me here. I want to say categorically that before now, in the last dispensation, Nigerians were shouting that they are in fire, but in this dispensation, they found themselves in a frying pan, purely based on the first statement made by Mr. President that has snowballed into this very situation, which we found ourselves that we cannot control any longer. What am I saying, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues? That Nigerians today are crying hunger everywhere, based on a simple statement of subsidy removal that has made the entire economy into serious confusion. Therefore, I have not seen an economy as a finance expert where depression and inflation go in opposite direction. By the time they jam themselves, we cannot manage what will come to this country. Depression and inflation go in parallel line. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the people I will thank most specially is not the labor union or us. I'm thanking the entire Nigerians for their patience. For their patience. This may not happen in most of our neighboring countries, and we remain like this. I want to thank them for their patience, and I want to urge them to continue with this, their patience. And finally, those who are going into negotiation, who are in negotiation now, I want them to have a benchmark in their negotiation. And that benchmark, I'll suggest, the price of one bag of rice is 75,000 today. Let it be the list of negotiating and now put into consideration school fees of individuals, family. Put into consideration medical aspects of families.
Round up, leader.
If you put those, and those of them who don't have houses of their own, and put it into, I don't want to stand here to say federal government will put their salary into it, but let price of bag of rice be a benchmark from where they will stand and negotiate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to go quickly. First is welfare, security. This is what is enshrined in the Constitution. And so I want to align myself with those who are of the opinion that this matter should be resolved as quickly as possible through every other means to ensure that we have a peaceful nation. Mr. Speaker, the law of Nigeria recognizes that as a person, you are entitled to one wife, 4 children, and then your mother and father. These are the things that you are entitled to take care, even in the tax relief or whatever. These are the indices and the factors given to us. And so by implication, you are supposed to have that minimum wage that will cater for this number of persons. And I want to say that, sir, yes, government have tried in the past, government is trying now, but then we have to do a lot in order to cover the trenches. If you are to take the school fees of the 4 people that have aligned to you to pay their school fees as a laborer, and you have a 60 or 50,000, will it be okay? Will it take you home? If you are to take the cost of transportation to your own office, and if you are to consider the feeding opportunities they are supposed to get, and let alone take care of the health facility, this is not tenable. I want to appeal that yes, we have done much, and I don't want those who are thinking that it is only Nigerian workers. One worker, by implication, have contact of more than 20 persons, if not 40, if not 50. And I'm saying, whatever you are giving to a Nigerian worker, one person, you are not giving to him. You are, by implication, giving the addition of the other people who are also online, who stand to benefit from what you are giving him. And I also want to say that whatever we are going to do should be tenable. Mr. Speaker, industries that have been closed down. I want to tell you that, but the various policies, which mean a lot, and they are meant to enhance our own living. The revenue that government is now generating, that is given to states and local government, which is not trickling down, and some of them are arguing that they don't have the money to pay from the petroleum subsidy that the amount of money being generated. I believe the Nigerian worker is entitled, and he should have the best of living, so that he will give us his best in terms of contribution. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to believe that we have to wait for agitation to happen. Do not forget what happened during the NSAS. All of us, we are running helter-skelter, and this should not be allowed to happen before the right thing is being done. My take is that government should resolve this matter as quickly as possible, taking factors of what I have mentioned. I am sorry, I'm coming from the labor background. I also have this party, and I want to say that what is going on now, yes, I appreciate Mr. President. He has given money a lot to the state governors and others. Today, some of them are celebrating their 1 year in office by just saying that they have given fertilizers to their people, not giving them good living conditions, not giving them infrastructure development, not giving them what is supposed to. Mr. Speaker, respect colleagues, I think we need to stand and speak right. This is the Nigerian Parliament, House of the People, that will speak for the people and for the people only, because they gave us this mandate. It's not by our qualification, by our status in terms of our society that we're here, but by their votes. And those votes mostly, largely, are canvassed. When we want to go for election, we look for the Nigerian Workers Forum to canvass with them. But now we are speaking for 2 sides of the mouth. I think it's not right. Mr. Speaker, respect colleagues, I want to say that Nigerian workers deserve a living wage that can carry home. Thank you very much. I so submit.
Thank you very much. Yusuf, you are the last.
The Trade Union Act and the Trade Dispute Essential Service Act, particularly Section 2, which states clearly that you should not, trade unions should not engage in activities that suffocates or obstruct or disrupt the smooth running of essential service. We are crying for Nigerians here. The poverty, the prices of commodities in market, the standard living condition of the people is sympathetic. So it is very terrible. And here we are, fighting for trade union living conditions. I agree, they constitute 13% of the population of this country. But go to equity with clean hands. Do not, in doing that, suffocate sectors like hospitals, where if it is not run, Nigerians will lose their lives. The primary responsibility of government is protecting the life and properties of its people. If the action of trade union, which is legitimate, negate those essential services, I don't think they will be doing fair to the people of this country. Finally, sir, they should not give wrong information. I understand personally with the opinion of the trade union, but why will you go to media and say a salary of political office holders, National Assembly of that matter? I don't receive the money that they publish in the front pages of newspaper. In the name of advocating for your standard living condition, don't give wrong and lying information about institutions is done inside the public against. We are concerned about the trade union, but Mr. Speaker, we should be more concerned about the over 2 million Nigerian population who are suffering, 200 million who are suffering, who doesn't have food to eat, who cannot buy kerosene, who cannot pay school fees for their children, who doesn't have shelter to stay at home. We should remember, we must be proactive, hold that bill, adjust it, call for public hearing, stakeholders should consider that. If we have done our job, federal government will not be doing what they are doing now. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And make a comment so that the public outside there will know the summary of what we've been discussing here today. So I put the question, those in support of this motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So this motion is moved to committee of the House on level.
And those were the views of lawmakers on the floor of the Green Chamber on the 5th of June 2024 when the minimum wage negotiations were still ongoing. Lawmakers will be expecting the minimum wage proposal to come as a bill when they resume plenary the first week of July 2024. Until then, we keep our fingers crossed, and that's the size of the package on the program today. Join us again next week for another episode of the program. I am Itaire Ikben. Do stay patriotic at all times. Bye for now.